You know that moment. Um, you're getting dressed. You go to button a pair of pants that fit perfectly, like just a few months ago, and you suddenly realize you are in a high-stakes wrestling match with your own zipper.
Oh, yeah, the zipper match.
Right. So what do? You suck it in, you hold your breath, and you just immediately convince yourself that the dryer shrank them.
Or you catch your reflection in a store window, notice your posture or your shape, and you purposefully look away.
Yeah, yeah.
You tell yourself you're just wearing an unflattering shirt, or that, I don't know, you're just exhausted today, because it's this universal, deeply human reflex to just bury our heads in the sand rather than face the discomfort of our declining health.
And that reflex is exactly what we are dismantling in today's deep dive, because today's mission is all about confronting those uncomfortable realities we try to ignore. We've gone through a stack of articles focused on practical, no-nonsense health resets, specifically looking at 10 actionable steps to rebuild your health.
And doing it without the shame, right?
Yes, exactly. Without the guilt and without the self-attack that usually comes with this realization, we're going to explore why we avoid the reality of our physical state, how that avoidance quietly degrades our quality of life, and most importantly, how to gently but firmly turn the ship around.
Because the psychology behind that avoidance, it's actually a fascinating defense mechanism. Your brain is wired to protect you from immediate psychological pain.
Right.
So when you acknowledge that your health is slipping, it triggers an emotional threat response. To keep you safe in the short term, your brain just offers you denial.
Okay.
But that comfortable denial is incredibly dangerous over the long term, because avoiding the problem doesn't freeze time.
That is the trap right there.
Yeah.
You don't just stay in that one single moment with the tight pants. Your biology just keeps ticking. The weight continues to rise, the joint pain slowly increases, the energy drops.
Yeah, and because it happens so gradually, your body just adapts to it. We have this incredible biological drive for homeostasis. Our bodies try to find a baseline normal no matter what we do to them.
Wow. Yeah, so the longer you sit in those unhealthy patterns, the more that lethargy and stiffness just feel like your new normal.
Exactly. You start attributing symptoms of poor choices to inevitable aging. You think being exhausted at 2 in the afternoon, or having aching knees, or getting winded on a single flight of stairs is just what getting older feels like.
They're like, oh, I'm just getting old.
But in the vast majority of cases, it isn't age. It's the cumulative effect of inactivity, poor nutrition, and chronic stress finally cashing their checks. The body, it whispers before it shouts.
I really want to dig into that concept of whispering because it completely changes how we view symptoms. I mean, ignoring your health is essentially like ignoring a past due bill in the mail.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. Because shoving that envelope in a drawer doesn't make the debt disappear. It just adds compound interest. So when you finally rip open that envelope, the problem is exponentially larger than if you had dealt with it on day one.
And we tend to wait for the body to shout, don't we? A terrifying blood test, an ultimatum from a cardiologist, a severe injury.
But the whispers were there for years.
Yes. Lower energy is a whisper. Waking up tired after 8 hours of sleep is a whisper. Struggling to get up from the floor to play with your kids, that is a whisper.
Yeah.
These aren't moral failings, they're biological data points. They're your system's check engine lights, asking for your attention before they turn into a full-blown roadside breakdown. The optimal time to intervene isn't when the problem requires a surgical intervention,
It's when you first notice the trajectory is off.
Exactly.
But to intervene, you have to actually look at the data.
Mm-hmm.
And that is where the psychological friction peaks.
Yeah.
If we know avoidance makes the problem worse, the critical first step is forcing yourself to tell the truth about your reality, but doing it without attacking your own character.
Right, because there's a massive biological and psychological difference between observing your current state and attacking your self-worth.
It's the difference between data and judgment, isn't it?
100%. If you say, I get tired too easily and my clothes don't fit, you are making a useful, objective observation.
Right.
If you say, I am disgusting and I've let myself go, you're launching an attack. And this isn't just about being nice to yourself. It's about neurochemistry.
Oh, right. The stress response.
Yeah, when you attack yourself with shame, your brain perceives the threat. It spikes cortisol, your primary stress hormone.
And chronic cortisol actually drives your body to store visceral fat and crave high-calorie, sugary foods.
Yeah.
So by trying to shame yourself into getting healthier, you are literally triggering the exact biological mechanisms that make you gain weight and feel terrible.
It is a completely self-defeating cycle.
We just need to get one honest data point to start, like stepping on the scale, getting a lipid panel, or taking a photo, and then looking at it without editing it or adding a narrative.
Think about the thermometer on your back porch.
Right.
It just gives you objective data. It reads 40 degrees. It tells you that you should probably wear a coat today. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't call you a failure for it being 40 degrees. And it certainly doesn't dictate your value as a human being. We have to start looking at a scale or a blood pressure monitor with that exact same detached, compassionate objectivity. It is simply telling you the temperature of your health so you can plan the journey ahead.
I understand the logic of the thermometer, but let's be real here. Diet culture has spent decades conditioning us to view a rising scale as a profound moral failure.
Oh, absolutely.
We are bombarded with this pervasive idea that physical imperfection means we're undisciplined or lazy. Unlinking our self-worth from that number takes a lot more than just deciding to be objective.
You are absolutely right. And dismantling that toxic conditioning requires us to forgive the messiness of being human. You didn't arrive at this physical state overnight.
No.
You accumulated these habits, coping mechanisms, and physical changes over 5, 10, maybe 20 years of simply trying to survive a demanding life. Your biology doesn't hold a grudge about the pizza you ate last week or the workouts you skipped last year.
That's reassuring.
It really is. It only responds to the inputs you give it next. We have to decouple the data from our identity.
And that separation of identity and data allows us to bypass the paralyzing idea of the perfect starting line.
Yeah.
Because once we look at the reality without the shame, we actually have to do something about it.
Right.
And there is this incredibly pervasive myth of the perfect Monday. This illusion that you need a flawless, pristine week with an empty calendar and a fully prepped fridge to begin making healthy choices.
The when things calm down fallacy.
Yeah.
People wait for this mythical period of low stress and high motivation that simply never arrives. Busy is a permanent condition of modern adulthood. If you're waiting for the perfect time, you will be waiting forever.
Yeah.
The most powerful time to execute a change isn't a pristine Monday morning. It's a chaotic, messy Thursday afternoon.
Waiting for the perfect Monday to start taking care of your body is like sitting in your driveway, refusing to put the car in drive until you can guarantee that every single traffic light between your house and your office is currently green.
That is exactly what it's like.
It's a very polite, socially acceptable excuse to stay parked. You don't need an optimized life. You just need to identify your biggest lever.
Finding the biggest lever is about efficiency. Instead of tossing out everything in your pantry and attempting to adopt a flawless Mediterranean diet overnight, you analyze your actual behavior. What is the one single habit that is causing the most metabolic damage right now?
For some people, it's drinking 800 calories of liquid sugar in their morning coffee order.
Yeah.
For others, it's the nightly delivery app habit, or sitting completely motionless for 10 hours straight at a desk. You don't need to major in the minors. You don't need to worry about the exact timing of your protein intake if your biggest lever is a severe lack of sleep.
By focusing on that single massive lever, you bypass the brain's threat detection system. Massive life overhauls trigger the amygdala, the brain's fear center, because dramatic change requires immense energy and feels unsafe.
Well, that makes sense.
But shifting one specific habit feels manageable. And you make it actionable by setting a decision, not a goal. A goal is an abstract wish, like I want to lose 30 pounds.
Which just sits on a shelf and generates guilt.
Exactly. A decision is immediate and behavioral. I will cook dinner at home 4 nights this week.
And to anchor that decision into reality, you have to tell just one person, a partner, a sibling, a close friend. Because shame and avoidance thrive in isolation.
They really do.
The moment you vocalize that decision, it crosses the barrier from a thought in your head into a physical reality in the world. It creates a mild social contract, making it significantly harder to quietly abandon your plan by Tuesday morning when your motivation inevitably dips.
But motivation and willpower are incredibly fragile, which is why focusing on your environment is far more important than focusing on your grit. Willpower will always lift to environment eventually.
Always.
If you have hyper-palatable, ultra-processed food sitting on your kitchen counter and you've had a stressful, exhausting day, that food is going to win the battle at 10 o'clock at night.
We really need to define hypopalatable because it explains why willpower fails so spectacularly. These ultra-processed foods are literally engineered in laboratories with precise ratios of sugar, salt, and fat that do not exist in nature.
No, they don't.
They're designed to completely hijack your brain's dopamine reward pathways and bypass your natural satiety signals. You aren't just lacking discipline, you are fighting sophisticated food science that is weaponized against your neurochemistry.
Exactly. You're experiencing what psychologists call willpower fatigue or decision fatigue. Your frontal lobe, the part of the brain responsible for impulse control and long-term planning, is like a battery. Every decision you make during the workday drains it. By the evening, that battery is dead, and your brain defaults to seeking quick, high-reward dopamine hits. That is why you must win the battle at the supermarket perimeter, not in your pantry. If the temptation isn't in your house, the cognitive load of resisting it vanishes entirely.
And this leads right into shifting away from restriction and toward a concept known as abundance thinking, or the crowding out method. The classic diet mentality is a massive list of things you must banish, restrict, and eliminate.
Which is miserable.
It is. That immediate sense of deprivation triggers that same willpower fatigue we just talked about. Abundance thinking completely slips the script. Instead of agonizing over what you can't have, you focus entirely on what you can add to your body.
It is a profound psychological pivot. Let's say you commit to adding 20 additional grams of clean protein to your dinner plate, and you commit to adding a large glass of pure water to your morning routine.
Okay.
As your stomach physically expands with nutrient-dense, high-satiety food, it naturally crowds out the physiological cravings for the processed junk. You aren't fighting the urge for a late-night snack with pure white-knuckle discipline. Your biology simply isn't demanding it because you're actually nourished.
It's about returning to simple, honest food. We don't need obscure superfoods shipped from the Amazon. The fundamental difference between cooking at home and eating at a restaurant is control.
Yes, control over the ingredients.
When you cook, you dictate the oils, the sodium, the portions. Restaurant meals and packaged foods are engineered for profit, preservation, and repeat consumption. They are not designed to protect your metabolic health.
A fantastic immediate application of this is cleaning up your fluids. Many people walk around in a state of systemic bloating, meaning their tissues are holding on to excessive amounts of water.
Yeah.
This is largely driven by high sodium and high sugar intakes from liquids pulling water into the cells through osmosis. Replacing those 1,000-calorie, high-sugar coffee milkshakes and sodas with pure water removes that inflammatory load, often reducing systemic bloating and energy crashes within a matter of days.
But let's confront a very real friction point here. What happens on those nights when you walk through the door, you are completely drained, your brain is absolutely fried, and the sheer thought of chopping an onion feels like a monumental technical project. That is the exact moment the delivery app looks like a lifesaver.
Oh, we've all been there. And that is precisely why you need a menu of what we call low-friction meals. You need 3 or 4 reliable, extremely basic meals that require zero cognitive load to prepare.
Like what?
We're talking about grabbing a pre-cooked rotisserie chicken and a bag salad, or throwing a freeze-and vegetable medley into a pan with some eggs. It doesn't need to be culinary art. The goal is simply to make the barrier to a healthy enough meal lower than the barrier to ordering takeout.
That removal of friction in the kitchen translates perfectly to how we need to approach the physical body and exercise. We have culturally inflated what counts as movement to an absurd degree.
We really have.
We assume that if we aren't completely drenched in sweat, breathless and sore for 3 days after a 90-minute gym session, we've wasted our time.
Yeah.
That intimidation factor keeps millions of people completely sedentary.
To combat that, you implement the 15-minute mandate. Biologically, a simple 15-minute daily walk is one of the most underrated metabolic interventions in human history.
Wow, really?
Yes. It clears brain fog by increasing blood flow and stimulating the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which literally helps grow new neural pathways. But more importantly, it resets your insulin sensitivity.
Okay, wait, let's actually explain how that insulin reset works, because it's honestly brilliant. So your muscle cells are essentially like exclusive nightclubs.
Right.
And glucose, your blood sugar, those are the patrons trying to get in. Normally, they need a bouncer to open the door, and that bouncer is the hormone insulin. But when you actively contract your muscles during a walk, it forces a back door to open. Specifically, these proteins called GLUT4 transporters move to the cell surface and pull glucose out of your blood without needing insulin at all. Just 15 minutes of walking naturally lowers your blood sugar and reduces the burden on your pancreas.
That mechanism is exactly why you have to start moving before you feel, quote unquote, ready. You don't need a perfectly optimized training split. You just need to meet the real life standard. We are not training to step onto a bodybuilding stage covered in bronzer.
Definitely not.
We're training for functional independence as we age. Can you carry heavy bags of soil in the garden? Can you get off the living room floor without using your hands? Can you navigate an airport terminal without needing to sit down? That is the biological capacity we are trying to preserve.
And preserving that capacity requires a fundamental shift in how we handle failure, which means you need a bad week plan. Unsustainable fitness routines fail because they demand ideal circumstances. The minute work explodes or a kid gets sick, the whole fragile routine shatters. You need a baseline minimum standard. If your life is an absolute chaos, your standard drops from an hour at the gym down to just a 15-minute walk around the block, or even just focusing on maintaining your current weight rather than losing.
It's a refusal to drop to zero. The problem is we treat exercise like a pass-fail exam. If you miss one morning workout, you feel like you failed the entire week, so you quit for the month. But if we applied that logic to dental hygiene, we all have no teeth.
Exactly. If you fall asleep on the couch and forget to brush your teeth one night, you don't wake up the next morning and say, well, I failed dental hygiene. I guess I'll just throw my toothbrush in the garbage and let my teeth rot out of my skull.
Huh? No, you don't.
No. You just brush your teeth the next morning. You don't demand perfection from your oral care. You just demand consistency. Rebuilding your health is exactly the same. Consistency is simply the act of refusing to disappear from your own life.
That framing consistency over perfection is the exact psychological stamina required for the final piece of the puzzle, the 6-month horizon. We have to violently reject the expectation of fast results from slow created problems.
This is critical. If it took your body a decade of adaptation to put on 50 pounds or lose its joint mobility, you cannot treat your biology like a vending machine where you input 3 days of salads and expect a brand new physique to drop out the bottom.
Right, the body doesn't work that way.
When you aggressively restrict calories in a crash diet, your body perceives a famine. It responds by downregulating your resting metabolic rate and increasing hunger hormones to keep you alive. That's why fast weight loss almost always rebounds.
The body adapts gradually, and progress rarely shows up on the scale first. It shows up in subjective markers like deeper sleep, less afternoon fatigue, improved digestion, less systemic inflammation.
But because this scale doesn't plummet in 2 weeks, people assume the process isn't working and they quit.
Which is why committing to a continuous, gentle 6-month horizon changes the entire landscape. 6 months will pass regardless of what you do. A gentle, sustainable approach prevents the metabolic damage and the psychological burnout of a 30-day extreme challenge. It really fosters sustainable change.
But surviving those 6 months requires us to completely rewrite our reward systems. We have been conditioned by advertising and culture to treat ourselves like show dogs. We endure a brutal, chaotic work week, and our immediate instinct is to reward ourselves with a heavy, highly inflammatory meal or a bottle of wine.
Yeah, that's the default.
But pulling your head out of the sand means realizing that using neurotoxic or inflammatory substances to cope with stress is actually punishing your biology, not rewarding it. We have to shift from punishment to future health.
We really have to sever the link between emotional decompression and food. True rewards support your recovery. A hot bath, an extra hour of sleep, a quiet walk listening to an audiobook. These are non-food rituals that actually lower your cortisol rather than adding metabolic stress.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
And to keep yourself anchored to these new systems over the 6 months, you establish a weekly 20-minute appointment with your health.
Just 20 minutes to sit down and review the reality of the week. How many times did I actually cook? What day did the plan fall apart? And what was the emotional trigger? You are tracking objective proof, not chasing perfection.
Right. It's a moment of course correction, not a self-flagellation session. It transitions you from being a passive passenger who only reacts to health emergencies into being an active architect of your physical future. These weekly reviews are how you create sustainable health change.
I do want to acknowledge, though, that in a digital culture entirely built around next-day delivery and instant gratification, telling someone they need to commit to a slow 6-month horizon can feel discouraging. It requires a level of patience that we just aren't used to practicing anymore.
It feels discouraging if you view health as a restrictive penalty for your past mistakes. But shifting that perspective is where the real magic happens. Every single healthy decision you make, choosing the water over the soda, taking the 15-minute walk when you're tired, prioritizing your sleep, None of that is a punishment for who you were yesterday.
Yeah.
Every single action is a direct, profound love letter to your future self.
A love letter to your future self. That changes the entire emotional frequency of the effort.
It removes the desperation. When you view your choices through that lens, the 6-month timeline isn't a prison sentence you have to endure. It's a gentle journey of accumulation. You aren't rushing, and you aren't demanding flawlessness. You are simply writing small, daily notes of care and capability to the person you're going to be half a year from now. Viewing it as a gentle journey is exactly how you prevent burnout.
Which perfectly distills the core message of this entire deep dive. Finding comfort in denial is a temporary illusion that only guarantees future suffering. The moment you pull your head out of the sand, look at the objective data, and name the reality of your situation, it stops getting worse.
Yeah.
You are not fundamentally broken, you are not too far gone, and you certainly have not missed your chance. You just need to begin rebuilding one simple, imperfect decision at a time.
And I will leave you with this to mull over, because it reframes the entire concept of aging. Culturally, we are taught to view our bodies as these fragile machines that are inevitably rusting and decaying toward a breakdown.
Yeah.
But what if we shifted our mindset? What if we started seeing our physical bodies as an ongoing, living project, a remarkably resilient system that we get to actively collaborate with every single day? If you knew your body was always willing to rebuild with you, how might that completely change your fear of getting older?
A living, collaborative project. I think that's exactly where we need to leave it. So the next time you go to button those pants and they feel a little too tight, don't blame the dryer. Just take a breath, look at the reality, and say, okay, I see where we are. Let's get to work.
Yeah.